Hello, friends. Good to see you. Welcome to My Left Ear. It's video 183. And for new people, I am Carrie Freeman, the writer, producer, director of My Left Ear. What we've got here is a left-leaning political channel where I do psychic commentary, and sometimes I'm doing the runes to support that. And we'll get into more and more in a few minutes. When I am not here on My Left Ear, I also have a Patreon channel. And by the way, I'm going to make a Patreon video tomorrow for those who are members. Thank you very much for being members. And I'm thinking about tomorrow's Patreon. I'm not sure yet, but I was reminded of a story that I have that's outrageous from my past, where I actually sued the pornographer Larry Flynt. It's a story. So like, I know now your minds are going, oh my God, what happened? Why would she know Larry Flynt? It's an interesting story. So I think I might share that with you tomorrow, because there was a whole thing. Anyway, I'm also an author, and that had something to do with the Larry Flynt thing. And I've written a couple of books. I've got The Comics Daughter, which I'm selling, and if you can see that in the community section. And I'm finishing up What is Good Evidence. I also do private sessions where I do psychic coaching and therapeutic hypnosis. Sometimes I combine both of them, and there's more information below. So what I do here is I gather the news, especially the news I find relevant and interesting, because I get to do that. And then I disseminate it and discuss it with you and give you my feedback. So here we go. This is for entertainment purposes only. So the first thing I want to say is I want to honor the passing of the late Rosalyn Carter, ex wife of Jimmy Carter, president. And Jimmy Carter has been in hospice, but they got him to her services, kind of wrapped in a blanket, looking fragile and sweet. And I am told he stayed through everything, through the burial. And this was the love of his life. This was the great love of his life. These two had quite a romance from very, very, very young. And Rosalyn Carter, you know, she didn't make it to college, but she had such a huge influence, and she was so down to earth and real, and she was a big supporter of mental health. And she and Jimmy Carter built homes. I mean, they put the gloves on and the hammers, and they did that. All I could think of was this morning was, my God, could you get any two first ladies opposite than Rosalyn Carter and Nancy Reagan? I didn't like Nancy Reagan, by the way. All right. God bless you, Rosalyn Carter, and thank you for your service. You are greatly admired. All right, moving on now. This is really huge, and it just came down the pike. And I had told you all that I was going to speak very little on Israel, Palestine, and Hamas, because I really don't feel, I feel like it's so grave that I shouldn't be doing it. You know, that it's so grave. And one needs to know a lot about the intricacies of the Middle East. But I do want to acknowledge this in the New York Times, that Israel knew, like a year in advance, that Hamas was preparing this very detailed and violent attack on Israel, and they ignored it. They knew, they heard about it, they ignored it. Bibi, I call him Bibi Netanyahu. I like Bibi. He was working on things on the West Bank, which that is the part I'm not familiar with. But they just turned their back on this information, except one woman, I don't know her name, kept warning them, and they didn't listen to the woman. They ignored her. So this really exposes Bibi. You know, personally, even though I don't know a lot of that history, I just think of him as like a Trump kind of guy, like not a good guy, dishonest, crooked, just, you know, like another sociopath, psychopath. That's what I think of Bibi. The other thing that's pretty fabulous is some, not all, that's the sad part, of the hostages were returned. And their stories are starting to come out that they, and all of the stories that the various hostages are relating are very similar. And that's really a way we know it's true, that they were forced to sit in silence in the dark, black dark, for at least 22 hours a day. And they would get into terrible trouble if they spoke. There was some whispering, evidently, if lips were put right up to the ear so they could communicate. And then they had light about 2 hours a day. Very little food. Some of them were beaten, and I'm told I read that there were lice. I don't think you and I can imagine the conditions, and it's amazing. And they heard bombing. They heard bombing above. Then all of a sudden the bombing stopped, and they all said, we knew something was happening, but we didn't know what it was, and that was the ceasefire. They couldn't know about the ceasefire. So that is all I'm going to say about. I'm going to leave it to braver people than I, people who even know more and can comment better than I can. But this was so big, and there's and I don't get the New York Times. Watched Morning Joe today, where they said this was remarkable reporting on Israel. It's remarkable, this story. So it's going to keep unfolding, and you're going to hear a lot more about it. Now I'm going to move on to this stupid Santos guy, the despicable fraudster, George Santos. He's been officially expelled as of this morning in Washington, D.C., and I guess he ran out of Congress and jumped in a car and ran off. Now, you know, there are pages and pages and pages of all the things he's being accused of. And my left ear says, and he's done it, okay? He's just an incredible fraudster, con, thief, liar, and he hurt a number of people, lost money, which he used for, you know, Botox and some R-rated friends only. I don't know what it's called. I don't visit those sites, but he used money that he stole for his own personal. I'd say he bought clothes, and he probably did, but he really is an embarrassment the way he dresses. So God knows what he stole or bought. So now, here are the rumors about George Santos, and I'm going to move on. There's a rumor that he got in that car, and he went right to the place, I guess, in New York, where he applies to run for Congress in 2024. Now, I have to call it a rumor because I didn't research it, but it sounds like something he would do, right? He wants revenge because he's like, you know, he's a sociopath and a narcissist. So now he wants revenge on people that expelled him, even though he's a criminal. And he's threatening to leak personal naughty dirt on fellow Republicans. Things he knows, like who's been hooking up, who's married and has been hooking up, and God knows what else. And my left ear says, oh yeah, he'll do that. He's gonna talk because he's angry. He's angry. They took money away from him. They took his income away from him. He was going to stay in Congress so he could get an incredible retirement. No, he's not. The guy's in a lot of trouble. I see him imprisoned. Now, Pastor Speaker Johnson, the new speaker, who basically talks like a pastor and is completely dishonest, he voted against expelling Santos. He voted against. And he also took pictures with, well, I think I mentioned this later, so I'm going to go on now. I don't know if you know this, but Ted Cruz was interviewed a few weeks ago about his podcast, and this was on camera. You can see him. It's not just an audio. And they're talking about the tragedies in Israel, Palestine, and right in the middle of this interview, talking about these serious, grave, deadly situations in the Middle East, Cruz plugged his podcast and said that he's on 3 days a week and these are the days. And it was like a car commercial in the middle of tragedy. It was embarrassing. It was self-dealing. It illuminated that he's such a jerk. So I contacted Colin Allred's office, who was running for the Senate in Texas against Ted Cruz, and who's really qualified Democrat, okay? It's very impressive. And I said, you need to take this interview and just use it for your campaign, because it reeks of his self-interest and self-absorption, and that he doesn't care about anybody, certainly nobody in Texas. So I hope Colin Allred got it, or a staff member got it and heard me. But my left ear thinks Ted Cruz is going to be gone. This is finally the year he's going to lose it. Next year he's going to lose his position. Hello, how exciting. All right. Now this one is a little bit overdue because I did wait a week before I came back to talk with you. But I'm calling this an inflection point, okay? That when Ohio voted for women's rights to choose abortion, to get that put into the Constitution in Ohio, and they approved cannabis for recreational use, it was great for Ohio, even though they're infighting about it, but it was the vote. Ohio came out, Republicans came out and said, oh, we're not going to oblige by this. We're going to ignore it, which they can't. But, they like blah, 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 all this bluster. But this happened right when Pastor Speaker Johnson came into, being the Speaker of the House. And he's so polar to what happened in Ohio that there's information here. He's really at serious odds with voters for the most part. We now know he did receive money, some Russian money. More of that is to be determined. He's recently took a very cozy photo, I don't mean sexual, but very cozy, very friendly, with Marjorie Taylor Greene and then Boebert. Not both of them at the same time, because those women don't like each other. And that's creepy, because this Bible thumper who lives by the Bible, not by the Constitution, he's chummy with these clearly low-life women who, so anyway, and I told you earlier that Pastor Speaker Mike voted against expelling the talented Mr. Santos. Did you ever see the movie, The Talented Mr. Ripley, with Matt Damon? Well, Matt was quite a bit younger, and he had like this baby face, And he was a sociopath and a murderer in the movie who got in with all these wealthy people. So that's why I call him the talented, Mr. Ripley. Now, Pastor Speaker Johnson, he'll be out of that position way before next November. Take it to the bank, okay? Now, also, donations, this is like good news, good evidence. Donations to the Republican Party have dropped. Good evidence. And the RNC now has the lowest amount of money on hand since 2015. So this cash deficit, combined with Republican losses in recent elections, has raised questions about RNC Chair Ronna Mitney McDaniels and her leadership. Now, she's also being looked at as a fraudulent elector, and that she was involved with coordinating those fraudulent electors. Now, I'm not talking about that much, but more interesting things are emerging, and we are not done with the indictments. I mean, Jack Smith is not done, because now more proof about Congress and the Senate is coming out. Like Chuck Grassley, now there's proof that he was planning to march into the Congress and obstruct the election because they decided they were going to get Pence out of there. But that didn't happen. But they've got proof. And they have proof of, well, they're finding proof with other congressmen and senators that partook in the January 6th. So you don't think Jack Smith is going to ignore that? Please. He's got a nose. He's not going to. So anyway, I'm expecting, Rona's really obnoxious too. I'm expecting her to get nailed at some point, indicted, investigated. She's going to get in trouble. All right, now this is sort of juicy. This is about Hunter Biden being subpoenaed by the House, by the idiot James Comer, who had previously wanted to impeach Trump, but nobody knows what for, right? I mean, it's nuts. But anyway, Hunter Biden and his team, so smart. Hunter Biden agreed to it. Of course, I'll come in with this subpoena, but only if it's televised in public, in the open, so that everybody can see my testimony. Well, Comer went nuts, and it was like, no, we don't want to do that. But I saw the best thing that night on Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel does great monologues. He's my favorite in terms of his monologues. His writers and his delivery, just love Jimmy Kimmel. But he's talking about this Hunter Biden thing, agreeing to testify in public only. And then he skipped to James Comer and said Comer was against it and said, if we don't do this behind closed doors, how are we going to make up stuff? Well, I'm not as funny as Jimmy Kimmel, but this was really funny, and the whole place burst, because it's true. They don't want him having the freedom to testify and answer questions confidently in front of the world. They want to do it privately and make shit up, okay? Yeah, that's what they want to do. Now, I usually don't do this, but I want to bring up Jamie Raskin, who we love, who's unbelievably brilliant, who survived cancer and his son dying. So Jamie Raskin said this. He said, let me get this straight. After wailing and moaning for 10 months about Hunter Biden and alluding to some vast, unproven family conspiracy, after sending Hunter Biden a subpoena to appear and testify, Chairman Comer and the oversight Republicans now reject his offer to appear before the committee and the eyes of the world, and to answer any questions that they pose. What an epic humiliation for our colleagues, Jamie Raskin said, and what a frank confession that they are simply not interested in the facts and have no confidence in their own case or the ability of their members to pursue it. After the miserable failure of their impeachment hearing in September, Chairman Comer has now apparently decided to avoid all committee hearings where the public can actually see for itself the logic, the rhetoric, and the factual contortions they have tied themselves up in. So he goes on to say, President Biden has committed no wrongdoing, much less an impeachment offense. Chairman Comer's insistence that Hunter Biden's interview should happen behind closed doors proves it once again. What the Republicans fear most is sunlight and the truth. Hear for Jamie Raskin. He is nothing but brilliant. Now, Wednesday morning, we're kind of coming to the end now. Wednesday morning, Trump issued a violent threat against Joe Biden and the rest of his political opponents. And he wrote this: Biden should stop his thugs before it's too late for him. I'm going to repeat that because it's so outrageous. Biden should stop his thugs before it's too late for him. Biden doesn't have thugs. Trump has thugs because Trump is the mafia. The blonde-haired, blue-eyed Nazi mafia. And I wrote about this. Oh, so that's a not-so-veiled threat to POTUS? If anyone else had said what Trump had said, they'd have the FBI in their kitchen. And you know it's true. So just recently, last few days, I kind of love this because Biden had a great visit to Pueblo, Colorado, the district of Lauren Boebert, okay? And so I'm just going to read to you this. This is just better than I can put it. The city of Pueblo welcomed President of the United States, Joe Biden, on Air Force One via the Pueblo Memorial Airport on Wednesday. The mayor of Pueblo greeted him and accompanied President in the motorcade for the scheduled visit to local wind tower manufacturing plants called CS Wind America. Now that's very important. And the mayor said, City of Pueblo is proud to welcome President Biden during his visit to southern Colorado and CS Wind. Pueblo is leading the nation with our investment in renewable energy, and CS Wind has been an incredible local partner to elevate the work of our community on a global scale as the largest wind tower manufacturer in the world. It's bringing a lot of business to the world and to Pueblo. Thank you, Joe Biden. Again. Well, she's going to be gone. I mean, Bobo's going to lose to Adam Frisch. Take it to the bank. All right. Now, here's another one. It's like some good stuff. A federal appeals court has ruled, and this is like as of yesterday, I think, has ruled that Donald Trump can be sued for inciting the January 6th riot. He is not immune because he was president. The circuit court rules. Details to follow. The D.C. court says candidate Trump doesn't get presidential immunity from being sued by Capitol Police, members of Congress. And I added, what about COVID victims? What about families of people who died from COVID because, but I guess they're just talking about January 6th. So, because I think he killed people, by not addressing COVID. So yeah, as I'm thinking about it, my friends, I think this circuit court was about, you can't sue him for January 6th. And the circuit court saying yes. So I added COVID inappropriately, but that is my wish. I'd love to see a suit brought against him for all the deaths, unnecessary deaths, that he is responsible for. Now, Liz Cheney's book is coming out next week. Many have read it. They say it's pretty great. Nicole Wallace, who has been out with her new little baby, her new little burrito, I call it. But she's coming on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, to do an extended interview with Liz Cheney. And then I think on Monday night, that will be Rachel Maddow. So we're going to see a lot of Liz Cheney. But one of the funniest things I heard from the book is that she describes this scenario after January 6th, where, remember, I don't know if you remember, McCarthy got up and gave a very good speech. He said all the right things and about how horrible this was. And then within 2 days, he was heading down to Mar-a-Lago. And so evidently Liz Cheney asked him about it. Why are you going to Mar-a-Lago? And McCarthy, with a straight face, utter seriousness, said, listen, I gotta go. I'm talking to the people at Mar-a-Lago and they're telling me Trump is very depressed and he's not eating. Reminds me of that Saturday Night Live that they used to do where they say something outrageous and then go, really? Amy Poehler did it with Seth. And they would say something outrageous and go, really? And so like, really? He's depressed and he's not eating? Well, that would be good if he's not eating because he needs to lose about 75 pounds. Anyway, that was the BS that she got. Unbelievable. All right, now we're getting to quotes. I've got a couple of quotes that I really like. One is by Bill Nye. And he said, everyone you will ever meet knows something that you don't. It's such a high thought, isn't it? And it may change you and I a little bit when we meet people going forward. I love it. Everyone you will meet knows something that you don't. I think it's true. Then I found this quote that really grabbed me. It's by a doctor of psychology, Dr. Nicole La Pera, P-E-R-A. And it made me think to ask you ever think you're too nice? Do you ever find yourself too accommodating? I have. So here's the quote. She wrote, for years, I was an over-understander. I tried to understand where everyone was coming from. I made excuses, told myself, oh, things will change. I thought it was my responsibility to accommodate. In reality, my responsibility is to take care of me, not to decode other people's behavior. I think maybe I'll put that in the community section because that's a mouthful and you could look at it and read it yourself. But I really, really like this. And I personally related to it because I put up with some very toxic stuff this past year. I'm so glad to say goodbye to 24. And now we get to good evidence, which is just a tidbit, but it's such a delicious tidbit. What's it called? Freudian. What's that word? Freudian something when you're happy about someone's bad fortune. Freudian something. It's a German word. Someone is going to know it, right? I'll look it up. I do know it, but I can't think of it. Anyway, Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote a book. It's called MTG, and it is receiving the worst reviews on the planet. And the sales are abominable. It's like the sales are like at the bottom of a list. It's like nobody's buying it. And even there are Republican people that are writing reviews and saying, this is just awful. This is just a terrible book. And evidently it's full of lies. And I'm so happy about this. It's not really spiritual, is it? But, you know, it's not, she can't blame any one person on the failure of her book. It implies people don't like her, they don't find her smart, they don't find her interesting, and now they're realizing she can't write. But she's doing these charming pitches for it, like what a great Christmas gift. And it might be a great Christmas gift for someone you don't like. I'll leave you with that thought. All right, so I'm going to come back and do Patreon most likely tomorrow, Sunday at the latest. I promise this. I promise this. And we'll just keep watching all of this. You know, we'll just keep watching all of this. The things I talked about today, I just wasn't moved to do the runes. I hope that's okay with you. My left ear was just pumping things into my ear. And I do feel that we are in this waiting room or zone right now where a lot of things are popping, but we're just kind of waiting a little bit. So anyway, make peace, make memories. Petey is passed out on the sofa, and there's just no way I could get him over here right now. He is a goner right now. He's not even lifting his head up. Okay, I'll see you soon. Have a good weekend. Make peace. Make good memories. By the way, I did read on Twitter that there is an uptick, an increase in kindness and people doing things for each other. Isn't that great? So I'll leave you with that. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.